In part 2, we're going to take the 3D model and generate some 2D plans. But before we do that, we're going to clean up the file a little bit. Usually at this stage, when you're generating 2D plans, that means you're finished with the design and are getting it ready to send to other people, either in the form of 2D plans or sometimes sharing the actual file itself with other designers. So if you're going to share the file, you want to make sure that it's cleaned up. So let's first save this as Project 4 Part 2. Project 4 Part 2. And I'm going to turn off the visualization palette. And then we're going to do a little cleaning in the resource manager. The template that you have has folders that I've created for various things, and we just want to put everything in the right folder to clean it up. So these things are the handles for the doors. So we just want to put all 3 of those into the scenery symbols folder. You want to put all of the textures that we just created into the scenery textures folder. Scenery textures. Black is a RenderWorks background, so we can go into backgrounds. We're going to skip careful for a minute. So here's some more textures. Textures. RenderWorks styles. This is a line type. There should be a folder for that. Wallpaper, and that's all textures. Here's some more door parts. So that's going to be scenery symbols. Glass is a scenery texture. And then these 2 things are sketch styles. If you happen to have those, if you want, you can create a new folder. You can't put things of the wrong type in, or you can't put things of a type into a folder that's not made for that type. That's the way Vectorworks created the folder. So if you want to put sketch styles in a folder, you have to create a new folder, and you want it to be a sketch style folder. We'll just call that sketch styles. Okay. If you have anything else in here that doesn't have a place to go, you can create an appropriate folder for it. Like I said, it's a good thing to clean up the file before you send it to somebody else, and even for yourself, if you find yourself coming back to the file later to work on it, it's nice to have it organized. So once we've done that, we're going to create a couple of new sheet layers to put the 2D plans on. So I'm going to go to the navigation palette, and the first thing I'm going to do is edit this sheet layer that we've created to fix the title. So we're going to click Edit, and we're going to change the sheet number from sheet 1 to sheet 0, and I'll explain why in a minute. The title can be Rendering. I generally up the DPI to 150, although that sometimes can slow down the rendering considerably. So if you're not having any problems doing the rendering, you should up yours to 150. If your computer's taking a really long time or struggling doing the rendering, then maybe leave it at 72. Just be aware that it's going to have jaggies, or it's going to be pixelated at 72 and will be less pixelated at 150. But so there's our newly created sheet 0 of the rendering, and then I'm going to right click here and create a new sheet. This is going to be sheet 1, and we're going to put the ground plan on this sheet. Going to make it 150 DPI, and then I'm going to go to that sheet layer. So here's our sheet. This should still be set to 11 by 17. In case it's not, you can just check the page setup and see, oops, that it is set to 11 by 17 in whatever way you have to do that, because that's Mac or PC dependent. Then we're going to put in a title block. I've included some pre-built title blocks in the template. They're in the resource manager in the title block styles folder. And there's a different title block for the 4 common sizes of paper: 11 by 17, 18 by 24, 24 by 36, and 36 by 48. We're going to be working just with 11 by 17 on this project. So I'm going to double click on that and then click in the document twice to insert it, and there's our title block. These title blocks are interactive, so you can fill in the information on them. They are set to automatically read the plate number from the sheet number, which is why we changed the rendering to sheet 0 so that we could start with the ground plan on sheet 1. So in order to change this information, if you have the title block selected and you look at object info, you can change by clicking on the sheet data, which is independent to the individual sheets, or the project data, which will appear on every title block in the project. So I'm going to start with the project data. And so we're going to give this a name. You can call it project 4. You can call it room. You can call it project 4 room, whatever title makes sense. The date today is, oh wow, 9/11. I just realized that. Obviously, fill in names that make sense and click OK. And so all of this information will change. If you have information for the specific sheet, such as the title of the sheet, the scale, we're going to do this in, I think, 1/2-inch scale. We'll just have to see what fits. We can always change this later, but 1/2 inch equals 1 foot, 0 inches. Okay. Then once I have the title block set, I can just duplicate this sheet layer. I just right-clicked, and it will duplicate it with the title block, and then I can edit the sheet layer number. So that's going to be 2. That's going to be center line section. And then we'll duplicate it again, and we're going to edit that, and we're going to call this elevations. And we may do a sheet 4 with more elevations, or we may not, but you see the point. These title blocks are editable. If you're interested in editing them to create your own, that, for instance, don't say theater UCF or whatever, let me know, send me an email, and I'll create a separate video that goes into detail about how to customize the title blocks. It's a bit lengthy, and I don't want to do it here, but I'm happy to, if anybody wants to know, I'm happy to tell you how to do that. So that sets up our sheet layers. Then we will go back to the design layer to start generating the actual plans. Because of the 2D, 3D hybrid symbols we've already created, we're very close to already having what we need for the ground plan. We just need to do a little bit of cleanup of things that we modeled and didn't create symbols for. So we're going to create a symbol for 2 of those, and then we're going to do a little trick with some of the others. So the one that we're going to create a symbol for is the crown molding. Usually crown molding, usually molding in general is not included on a ground plan. It's considered a detail, but often crown molding is included because it's a large element at the top of the set that sticks out, and the lighting designer would like to know about it. So it's usually drawn in as a dashed line. So we can pretty easily select the crown molding here and use the automated tool to turn it into a hybrid symbol. So I'm going to select both of the pieces of crown molding. I'm going to go to Spotlight, Architectural, Create Auto Hybrid. And it's going to say, hey, this auto hybrid will not display in top view. That's because it's set to section at 4 feet above the ground and show the section and anything below the section. It's not currently set to show anything above the section. So I'm going to click OK. And then while that's still selected, you'll see it still says auto hybrid. I'm going to click on 2D appearance and go to above cut plane and tell it that yes, I would actually like to see what's above the cut plane. I'd like to use the class that's in the template in drafting of above cut plane, which is a dashed dotted line, and tell it to use the 2D attributes of the class that I just indicated. And then if we click OK, then you'll see that it shows up as a dotted line. If you happen to have clicked off of it before and let go of it, then you won't be able to, you may be able to click on it. If you can't, you might need to go to front view and select it where you can actually see it again in order to get back to it. You might be able to actually click on it if you let go of it before you did this transformation. But so the auto hybrid is a really quick and easy way to clean up things. So some of the other molding, so all this wainscot and stuff, which we actually just don't want included in the ground plan, we could do a couple things. We can create an auto hybrid that doesn't show the molding by setting the height of the auto hybrid to be below the molding or below whatever the object is. So the auto hybrid is set to automatically look at the model at 4 feet above the ground and show us what's going on there. Since this is an 8-inch tall platform, we could just create an auto hybrid that's set at 0, which is below this actual molding, and then the molding would just disappear the same way that the crown molding did, and then we wouldn't do anything to have it reappear. The other thing is actually much simpler. If we just select both, sometimes it's hard to get it. We select all of that and just send it to back so that it's under the platform. It's still there, but you can't see it, which is a pretty easy way to get rid of it. So I'm going to do the same thing with the door and the window molding that we added. I also want this. I'm going to send that to back. Send to back. It looks like I accidentally sent the crown molding to the back as well. What is that? I wonder. I'm going to go to front. Oh, it's more of it's the other piece of the molding. So we're going to send that to back. Send to back. That got rid of that. So I need to retrieve the crown. Oh, here's another piece. Modify, send to back. All right, getting close. I need to retrieve the crown molding. So if I go to top wireframe and grab the crown molding and send it back to front, then I should. Yep, there we go. Okay, now it's back. We're going to deal with the shutters in a different way. So there's this line right here, which is the little thin extrusion that we did so that we could apply the beadboard to it, and it's inside the stair group. So I'm just going to double click on the stair group to edit it. I'm going to select that and send it back. So that's gone. Okay, so that's almost everything. Lights are automatically set up to not show up in 2D plan views, so you don't really have to worry about those. The other thing I need to deal with is these shutters. But rather than just sending those to back, we're going to do something else, which we'll explain later. We're going to do some classing. So, because right now everything is in the none class, and for a variety of reasons, one of which is just to clean up the file. We want to apply some classes to things. So I'm going to just select the whole set for right now and put it all in the scenic class, scenic main. And no, I don't want the class assignments to apply to the sub-objects. I'm going to leave the objects in their individual classes if they're in a group, and I want to just apply the class to the group, if that makes sense. So, for instance, the individual parts of the stairs may be in different classes. They're not, but they might be. But the group that is the stairs can be in its own class. So I'm going to no, I do not want to have the class assignments apply to the sub-objects. So now all of this is in the Scenic class, and I want to create a new class that's just for the shutters. So I'm going to go to Navigation. I'm going to right-click here. I want a new class, and it's going to be Scenic dash shutters. Only I'm going to spell shutters right. Maybe. And in case I didn't explain this in a previous video, the reason the dash is there is because the dash lets you have sub classes. So we've got Scenic Control, Scenic Label, Scenic Main, Scenic Shutters. All of those are Scenic dash this name. That's how you create a subclass. And I'm going to go ahead and put the shutters in the shutter class, Scenic Shutters. No. And then I'm going to send them to the back. So now I have the almost cleaned up ground plan. There's something a little strange going on here. The stairs are on top of the walls, so I just need to select the walls. And send them to front. Okay, so now this is what the ground plan should look like. And without doing any drawing, really, because we created the symbols as we were going along. We just need to label this, basically. We need to put it on a sheet layer and add some labels. So we're going to view, create viewport. We want to put it on the ground plan layer. We should be able to leave everything else the same. This, by the way, is there's a drawing label that gets automatically created sometimes when you create a viewport. If you don't want that to happen, you can turn this off. I'm going to turn mine on so you'll see what I'm talking about, but this is where you can turn it off. We'll click OK, and there we have the ground plan. This is the drawing label that I was talking about. Sometimes this is useful if you have multiple drawings on the same page and you want to be able to label them. In this particular case, it's sort of superfluous because it's already labeled. So I could have turned that off where I just showed you, or I can go into the annotations and turn it off there. So going in and annotating is the next thing we will do. Speaking of annotations, as a refresher, I hope, for the undergrads and new information for the grad students, sheet layers and everything on them are always in full scale. So you can't work in scale on a sheet layer. For instance, if I were to dimension something here using the dimension tool, it would be wrong. So I'm going to dimension this wall. And 4 inches. Well, this wall is obviously not 4 inches long. This wall is 8 feet long. So it's giving me the actual dimensions of the drawing rather than the scaled dimensions of the wall. So just keep that in mind, that if you're working on the sheet layer, it's always in full real world of the drawing scale. The way you solve that is by going into the annotations of the individual viewport. And you do that by double-clicking on the viewport, and you'll get the Edit Viewport dialog, and you can do 4 things. You can go into the annotations, you can go into the crop, which is tells the drawing what part of, or it tells the viewport what part of the drawing it is viewporting. You can go back to the actual design layer if you need to edit something, or if you have a camera, you can deal with the camera. Usually you want to go into annotations or crop. So for what we want to do here, we want to go into annotations. So I'm just going to click OK. Now I'm inside the viewport on the sheet layer, and I'm in scale. If I go back now and dimension my wall, it's going to say that it is in fact 8 feet long and not 4 inches long. So important distinction, you must be in the annotations of the viewport in order to do anything in scale. This is also where I can get rid of this drawing title if I want to. So in order to sort of complete this ground plan, I basically just need to add some annotations and dimensions. So the first thing I need is a center line. So I'm going to find the center of the platform. I'm going to draw a line. Should also go through the backdrop, I guess. There's a center line class set up already. So if I go to drafting center line and change that, that will put me in automatically in the long dash, short dash world. And then I just need to label that. Capital C, capital L. Then put those into the dimension class. So viewports have their own class layer control. Evidently this viewport has the dimension class turned off for some reason. So I just backed out of annotations. So I'm now in Object Info. I'm going to go to classes and make sure that dimension is turned on. And the C and the L will come back. I'm going to go back into the annotations. Make this a little larger. There we go, that's better, okay. So, some people have a pre-created center line symbol, which I should have done years ago. It would have saved me a lot of time, but I never did. So at any rate, there's that. We need to add just a couple of dimensions for theater drawings. You usually on the ground plan only dimension position, where the scenery goes. You don't dimension the actual scenery because the dimensions of the scenery will be on later drawings. They'll be on the elevation plans. In this particular case, who knows where the set goes, is it's not really in a theater anywhere. So I think the one thing that I would dimension on the ground plan for this is just the overall size of the platform, because for a simple set like this, it would be sort of a waste to have in a separate platform plan, which is often the case when you have a more complicated set. So I'm going to just dimension the size of the platform. As I said, the size of everything else will get dimensioned on other plans. I'm going to do a little bit of a label that says backdrop, so we just know what that is. Dimension class again. And then we just need to add some heights to the things that are raised. So the platform is plus 8 inches. I'm going to put that inside a circle, which is our convention. I want to use that same size circle on the stairs, so I'm just going to make sure that it actually fits. It does. Okay, great. So there's our platform. I'm going to duplicate that, put it in the center right there. So this will now be plus 16. And yes, of course, my circle is in fact too big. I'm going to go ahead and make all of these circles the same size. Sometimes you discover in different stages of the drawing that there's a previous mistake somewhere. This step appears to be a different width than all the other steps, but I believe that's just because in the 2D plan, the landing is on top of this step. So I'm going to exit the annotations and go back to the design layer and look at the stair group. Yeah, the stairs on top. So I want to move all of these stairs, but not this wall that we already moved to the back. So we want to move those and this and these and that to front, or send to front rather. There we go, that's better. I probably should have explained this earlier, but just to make it clear, send to front and send to back has nothing to do with 3D space. It's only dealing with 2D space. So when I'm sending these things to back and sending them to the front, I'm not moving the 3D in any way. I'm just dealing with the 2D. So in case you were wondering what was happening with the 3D model. So back to the ground plan. To put the wall markers on. So in theater drafting, as opposed to film and television drafting and some architectural drafting, depending on how it's being done, we usually label the individual walls because they're being built as individual pieces. In film and television drafting, it's usually done more like an architectural drawing where you think of this whole thing as sort of one wall, not as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different walls. So we're going to label this as if it were a theater drawing, just recognizing that you might label it differently if you were doing a architectural building for a themed event or experience, or if you were doing film and television drafting. So we're gonna go into the annotations and add a drawing label, or a wall marker rather. Reference marker, there we go. Okay, so we're gonna, this is in fact really a section. It's configuration 2. We do not want to use the sheet number. This is going to be drawing A. Yes, to all that. We probably want to, we can leave the scale the same. There we go. Going to go ahead and fill that in. And I really meant A, not 1A. And this arrow angle should be 180. So that's wall A. I'm going to duplicate that. Change the A to a B. Change the arrow angle from 180 to 90. Duplicate that. Move it over here. Change this to a C. The arrow angle to a 0. So putting these last two wall markers in just made me realize that something looks like it's missing, and what's missing is the door swings, which means that their class got turned off. When the stock doors, when you insert them, they automatically class some things. So in order to turn those on, I'm going to back out of annotations and go to the viewport object info and click on classes. And I think they're probably in the sills class, which is automatically generated when you insert a stock door. Yep, there it is. We turn the sills class on, then there the door swings appear. So I'm going to go back into the annotations layer. And now that those are there, it makes me think I should perhaps make these wall markers slightly smaller. So I'm just going to select them all and change the 2D scale factor to, let's try 0.75 and see if that looks better. Yes, that looks much better. That will allow me to put E up here and put F more centered here, which looks better. Then I can move G down here. I'm nudging with the shift and arrow keys, and then I can put F. I'm sorry, that's an H. Reading is fundamental. I can put H right there. So that should now complete the ground plan. Let's see, we have doors with door swings. The windows now have their sashes showing this door is just a doorway. The stairs are all labeled. All the walls are labeled. The backdrop's labeled. We have some dimensions. Okay, good. So that completes the ground plan. Next, we're going to do a centerline section. And those of you who were in the undergrad class last semester who struggled with sections will be amazed and mystified, or maybe not, but at any rate, it's much easier in 3D. So we're going to go back to the scenery layer. I'm just going to figure out where the center line actually is. It's right there. Good. And I need to make sure that smart points are turned on so that I can snap to that section. So I'm going to create a special type of viewport called a section viewport. So under View, create section viewport. I can put it wherever I want, but I'm going to put it right here in the center because it's a center line section. So I'm going to line it up with the center. I'm going to click, I'm going to drag up. So this indicates where the section line is being created. I'm going to click again, and then if you look right at the stairs, there's an arrow, and depending on which side, I'm moving my mouse back and forth, depending on which side of the line I'm on, the direction that the arrow is pointing indicates the direction the section is going to be created, and I'm going to create it that way. So I'm going to double click, and it's going to ask me where to put it. I'm going to say I want to put it there on my centerline section layer. I do not want a drawing label. I'm going to leave everything else the same. I'm going to click OK. It's going to think for a minute, and bam, there's the section. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup because I would like for it to indicate the things that it's cutting through. And when you create a section, it automatically generates a section style class, which I'm going to edit because I would like the fill to be a hatch. I'm going to use the theater hatch. I'll leave OK. We're going to update. It's going to think for a minute. And there's the section. Done. There's really nothing to label. There's, if this section were of a set that's actually in the theater, we would probably just in the annotations paste in the 2D drawing of the theater section, which is the same thing we did last semester when we drew this in 2D. But this is just floating in space somewhere. It's not in a theater, so we don't have to worry about that. So that is the section. Isn't that easier than drawing it in 2D? I thought you'd think so. So now we can generate some elevations. So back to scenery. Let's go to front. And wireframe. You can do the elevations in a couple of different ways. I'm going to show you a couple of different styles. Some of them are dependent on rendering, so some of you will be able to do some of them, and some of you will be able to not. That wasn't very good English. But so what we're going to do is rather than go through all these walls, we're going to do a front elevation of the whole set, and then I'm going to show you how to use the section tool to do an elevation of wall A, and then you would do exactly the same thing for the other walls. So it's really easy. So essentially, you go to the view that you want, view, create viewport. We're going to put this on the elevations layer. Say OK. And then for a sort of traditional drawing, you want to put this in, rather than wireframe, you want to put it in hidden line. And if we update hidden line, it'll think for a minute, or several minutes, and you'll get this nice line drawing of the set. So there it is, already drawn. We don't have to draw anything because we've already built it. So that would be the elevations of walls B, D, E, G. You can, depending on the style that you're using for the drafting, you can break these out into individual walls if you want to by just adjusting the crop. So I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to double click and go into the crop. And if I wanted to break this out into individual walls, I can just crop. I'm just going to use a rectangle to draw a rectangle around the particular wall that I want. And there would be my elevation of wall B if I wanted to do separate elevations of the different walls. I'm just going to do the one main elevation here, which is more of a television style, but be aware that you can do that. If sometimes hidden line can actually be the most complicated and most time-consuming render. For some reason, it takes out a lot of thinking to come up with hidden line. So if that's not working for you, you can certainly do this in OpenGL. So if we switch this to OpenGL, click Update, let it think for a minute. Often when you're in OpenGL for rendering, for elevations, you need to bump up the lighting. The lighting in individual viewports is controlled individually. So if I go to lighting options, and I usually just turn up the ambient to like 90. And we're gonna, there, that looks better. So you can leave this way if you're gonna do this. You would there are a couple of dimensions that you would want to add here are the heights of the walls, and then you'd want to dimension the individual wall widths. And you notice that I am going to the edge of the wall, not to the edge of the molding. And I doubt very seriously that's supposed to be 6 1/4, so I'm going to use the precision of no fractions there. Gonna go, where's the edge of that wall? It's here, which is probably there. And once again, that is probably supposed to be 6'8". That only makes sense. So there. I might want to indicate the height of the doors. I probably want to indicate the height of the chair rail. I'm sure there'll be another drawing somewhere with details of that molding. So that's, I could put in the height of the windows if I wanted. I might do a separate drawing. So there are so many different ways, so many different styles that people have for drafting elevations. I'm showing you the technique for how to do it. I'm not necessarily showing you what the final plans should look like. I'll sort of leave you to your own devices on how to break this out, if you want to break it out into separate walls or if you want to leave it all like this. What we do need to look at is how we elevate these walls that are coming straight out towards us. So what we do with that is really just use the section tool. So I'm going to create another sheet layer. I'm going to duplicate the elevations layer. Duplicate. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go back to scenery. And now if I want to get the elevation here of wall A, I can just create a section through wall A, or looking at wall A using the section tool. And view, create section. We're going to go right there, double click. We're going to put it on 4. We'll say there. I don't need the backdrop. So, whoops. We'll go into the crop. Crop this. This looks like not good. I think we can fix that with the setting. Hmm. 3D conversion resolution is set to low. Let's set it to high. There we go. That looks better. Of course, to be consistent with the other page, I should actually put this into OpenGL. So all of your sheets should be in the same render mode. If you're doing them all in hidden line, they should all be in hidden line. If you're doing them in OpenGL, they should all be in OpenGL. And we'll bump up the lighting to 90. All right, there we have that. Then we would go into annotations and dimension that. Let's do that. Here, since it's a doorway, we would want to dimension that. It's probably needs to be no fractions. We should do the height of the door. Doors and windows, the convention is you dimension the whole, so you don't include the molding and things, because that'll be called out somewhere else. So that is that. We would want to label this, and we'd want to label the other page as well. Wall A, which is why we put all those markers on the ground plan, so that we can line up so that we know what we're looking at in the ground plan. The arrow points to wall A, and then here is the view of what that arrow is pointing to. That's what those markers are supposed to mean. Here, we'll do this. And then one last thing, I want to explain why we put the shutters in their own class. So if we go back to here, you can't really see what the windows look like with the shutters here. So you in order to do a proper elevation of this wall with the window, you need to either show the window without the shutter in this view so that you can actually see the window, so you know what it looks like so you can build it, or and then do a separate view of the shutter, or you need to show it like this and then do a separate view of the window. The thing that actually makes the most sense to me is to get rid of the shutters in this view. So we're going to go to classes and turn the shutter class off. Scenic shutters. Okay. And re-render or update. So there's that. And then we can duplicate this viewport, cut it, go to another page somewhere, paste it in, turn the shutters back on, get rid of these annotations, edit the crop, update. Then there is the window, and we could add some dimensions there, and then this can be a detail shutters. So as you're working, if you class things properly, you can break out all the detail you need. You can, with one model, you can show drawings of many different things. I often have drawings where each wall is in its own class, so that you can just break things out. Or certainly all the walls are in a class, and the things like shutters are in their own class, the furniture is in its own class, so you can really use the class system to help you quickly generate drawings after you've built the model. The idea is the model should be the thing that takes all the time, because you're actually figuring out and doing the design. And then once you have the model built, it should take you very little time, if you've been creating hybrid symbols and things along the way, to generate plans to send to the shop. So you should have now 5 drawings, sheets 0 through 4. A ground plan, a section, at least a page of elevations, and an elevation of one of the walls that faces parallel to the viewer in the ground plan. If you want to do all the walls, you're welcome to. You can make this as complete as you want. I would like for you to at least do what I just did here, including the shutter detail, and then you can publish these 5 sheets. You've actually technically already printed out a PDF of the rendering in part 1, so you can either do it again or not. If you want to have a complete set, that's fine. And that is what you should turn in for part 2, is a PDF of the either 4 or 5 sheets of the 2D drawings.